Cliff Pendergast is 66 years old and only has one kidney, but he believes in staying fit. Every day he cycles 5 miles to play golf. He knows he will need all his physical stamina and mental determination to overcome the medical challenge he faces. Neil is Cliff's younger son. He also has only one kidney, which his father gave him 5 years ago after Neil's kidneys both failed. Russell is Neil's older brother. Neither of his kidneys function, and he spends 15 hours every week on dialysis.
Get in there. Jackie, you can do it, get in there.
Yeah.
He had a failed transplant 5 years ago and has been waiting for another kidney ever since. Eva carries the gene for Alport syndrome, the rare condition which caused both her sons' kidneys to fail 7 years ago. When this happened, she offered to donate one of hers, but was told she was not suitable. Cliff has made an offer that has shaken the medical profession to its foundations. He wants to donate his remaining kidney to Russell. He knows he would then have to go on dialysis himself, and that his life might be shortened. But for him, it's the logical thing to do. For 4 years, Cliff has been fighting a lone crusade against the medical profession, trying to find a transplant surgeon or ethics committee willing to do what he wants. An effective troubleshooter in the army, he's used to battling bureaucracy. He's already been turned down by 2 transplant teams, but refuses to give up.
Placing me on dialysis will have little or no effect on my lifestyle. Being retired, my life is purely recreational, and in my declining years, my needs will be even fewer. But I do firmly believe that our son fully deserves the chance to regain his proper place in a fulfilling and successful career, and a personal life not blighted by an avoidable clinical circumstance.
He is so concerned at his son's lack of enjoyable lifestyle that he has offered his second kidney for transplant, accepting that he will have to go on to dialysis himself. Full stop. New paragraph. As I'm sure you can imagine, this has precipitated great ethical debate amongst not only our local transplant surgeons, but also the BMA Ethics Committee. Full stop.
It's always better if it's somewhere there, because then I can bend my arms.
Quite straight there as well,
yeah,
isn't it?
Make sure you give that one a really good belt of lignocaine, because one twitch and it'll don't want to play.
Russell is one of over 5,000 people in this country currently waiting for a kidney. But antibodies in his blood dictate that the chances of him finding a good match are remote. The family knows that a kidney from a close relative is far more likely to do well.
We want to leave the gate open so that it would never reach a situation when he can't have a transplant because he's too ill, for the sake of taking mine before that situation arrives. And that's the whole object of the exercise.
You see, it's facing, even now, in the next 10 days, another operation, which is the 54th time he's been put under anaesthetic in 6 years. And he's got to have a gland taken out of his neck, which is a fairly delicate operation, and he's already been told that it's not very pleasant, but it's to do with his calcium level in his body.
Could you briefly run through your medical history for me, Russell?
Yeah,
briefly.
I had kidney failure when I was 28, been on dialysis for 6 years, and now as a result of that I need a parathyroidectomy.
Right. And you're aware of what that entails?
Yes.
Yes.
Russell always plays down the pain and strain imposed on him by his condition.
You do tend to get a bit blasé about it, especially the smaller operations, especially if they're coming at you fairly frequently. I mean, last year I think I went for about 13 different operations and procedures that required anaesthetic in a space of about 12 months. So, you know, it did get to the case where you thought, oh, it's Wednesday, it must be surgery.
A dialysis machine is a poor substitute for a real kidney. Over time, the build-up of toxins in the blood causes severe stress on the major organs of the body. Russell's life expectancy is inevitably compromised.
And Russell sustained himself over many, many years on the basis that eventually he hopes to get a kidney, which will, I won't say eliminate, but certainly correct in the main all the necessary attacks on his body that's been over the past 8 years. And instead of a breakthrough, we seem to take a pace back every time. And it's all a question of this continual correction with no possibility of a cure. Well, in our opinion, there is a cure available. Or not a cure, but certainly there's an alternative to his present situation of pain and suffering and anguish, which we think the medical profession ought to take. What age is it?
Hello there.
Where's his seat? Where is he?
5.
On 5.
Yeah, just on there.
Okay, thanks. How you doing? In the ward?
Yeah, sure.
He's obviously a bit... Do you want to speak to him? Okay, try. No, you'll try anyway. Just hang on 2 seconds.
Hello? Yeah, a bit. Little bit. Right. Okay. Good. Okay. Right.
You're living on a knife edge all the time, and it's not just Russell, it's Cliff and I as well. Living, you know, for all these years as we have, waiting for something to happen. And you never know what it's going to be.
Cliff has one final chance. He's managed to win an appointment at the Middlesex Hospital in London. He's heard that they're sympathetic to the special problems thrown up by transplants between relatives.
Hi.
Hello there. Maybe Pendrick or see Professor Neil, I think.
Yep, just like to say, nurse waiting.
Yeah.
Dad, aged now 66, has chosen or wishes to give his remaining kidney to his son who's not been transplanted. Now, you can immediately imagine what issues that raises. First of all, clearly the dad's going to have to go on to dialysis forever. What is your off-the-cuff opinion about this?
I mean, certainly from his point of view, this is his son, isn't it? So, and naturally, people want to do the best for their children. But I mean, perhaps it's also your role to protect him from, you know, making a decision that's based on emotion rather than on, you know, proper logic. Because it seems that you can't obviously guarantee the graft will work, and then you're going to be in a situation with 2 people in renal failure, whereas before you have one waiting for a...
Well, obviously, normally when we do live relatives, we obviously take a fairly optimistic view. Yeah. I mean, one can say that there's a chance that within 1 year 10% may fail, or one can look at the other way around, as one usually pays and say that after 1 year we'd expect at least 90% success. So, sort of betting he's probably going to get away with it. But I think the ethical thing in my mind is that up till now we've always felt that sort of we know best. We can make decisions for patients. We know when they shouldn't have operations. But there are times when a patient really can know as much about pros and cons as us. And there are times perhaps when we should be letting the patient decide more.
We're overweight at the moment, so don't moan at me.
Join the club.
How is it? So
86.
That's a bit high. I should be about 75, I think. I'm about 2 stones overweight, I reckon.
We need some urine, but you can do that after you, before you go.
I'll try.
Okay.
From patient.
what I'm going to do, I wanted to meet you first. I just wanted to talk to you, get an idea of you know, how fit you are and so on. And then I need to obviously talk to my own people here, the transplant surgeon, and see whether he would consider things, because, you know, you can't go round from every unit in the country asking people. And I'd just like to air it amongst some of my colleagues the idea that perhaps in this case you know what you want.
Well, my motivation is totally to see Russell. He's an extremely bright lad. He works very, very hard, and he deserves a better life than he's got. And I've said that the delay, all that's happening at the moment in dialysis and whatever treatment he gets, is a containment.
You made a very good point in one of your letters that there might come a time when things are so desperate with Russell that everyone feels, okay, you know, we've reached a desperate... But as you point out, this might be 3 or 4 years' time, you'll be 3 or 4 years older. And one might have said, well, why didn't we do this 3 or 4 years ago? I think that's a very... But let's just see what we can do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time anyway.
If he wants to do that for his son, actually no one should talk him out of
Do you think you should let people be Unipark dealers for their children? I mean, I don't
exactly what I think too. No, but it is... No.
You've got to stop people. You can't let everybody do everything. I mean, it's not paternalism. It's stopping him making a decision that's not a good decision, but one that he feels he's got to make. You know, especially since he's given one son the kidney already.
He must have thought a lot about it, haven't he? He must have think a lot. He knows what's going to happen. I'm sure he knows that if he gives the kidney, the child might not, the kidney might not work. Yeah, but that's his chance, and that's what he wants to do in life.
Yeah, but I don't think he has. I think that's the whole thing. This whole thing has been displaced. He hasn't thought through it because he's been involved in a battle. There's like way many more issues involved. Yes, that no one's addressed. Yes, or it doesn't feel like.
Well, I suppose then, if at the moment to send him to a psychiatrist, and
I guess we'll see what you know, we've got to get past the go, and then we can start to sort of get involved in stuff.
She wants some now. Shall we try again, my dear?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you ever so much. Nice to see you. Thank you.
Only parents with children in a similar situation could really understand why we could both live with this type of offer and want it to happen. The fact that I've supposedly passed this thing on to Russell and Neil is a horrible feeling. If I can make them whole by having all their pain and discomfort and everything else from them, then obviously I would. It's a very hard situation to live with. But I'm only pleased that we only had 2 children. If we'd had more, if we'd had more sons, they probably would have all been in the same way.
The 2 boys had a normal, active childhood. Both went into renal failure in their 20s, within 2 weeks of each other. Their father offered to donate a kidney, and it was found to be a match for either son. Neil seemed to be managing less well on dialysis, so Russell graciously put him forward.
The change really is absolutely phenomenal. You go to sleep, you feel crap. You wake up several hours later, you've got a few tubes sticking out of you, but you feel brilliant. You're suddenly given this lease of life, yeah? And you want to go out and do all the things I couldn't do for 2 years. Like, I want to go away for the weekend. Or, I want to go out for a whole night and not tell anybody I'm coming back. These kind of things that you just couldn't do before.
If anybody has any doubts about the quality of life after a transplant, there's absolutely no doubt about it at all. They go and see somebody that's had one.
A year later, Russell received a cadaver kidney from the central pool. But after 6 weeks, he was rushed back into hospital.
I can remember being on the trolley and the lights rhythmically flashing over the top of my head. I was losing touch with the fact that it was a question of saving my kidney. What I was more concerned about then was having relief from the pain. And I kept saying to them, please knock me out, take the pain away.
Unknown to the doctors, Russell had been hemorrhaging internally for days. The artery connecting the new kidney to his blood supply had burst open.
And they said as soon as they opened the groin where they put the kidney, the blood just spurted out and they were all covered in blood in the operating theatre. He nearly died that night.
The tragedy is, of course, that a perfectly sound kidney was lost.
It had such an adverse effect on him. He never really... The whole family never really got over it.
And I said, you know, one day he's going to go out and just put his foot down on the car. But fortunately, he's always been a very sensible lad. He came through it again.
And that brought me to thinking, was it possible for me to donate my other kidney to Russell?
It's Cliff's kidney they're taking, isn't it? And his lifestyle would change completely. But he's prepared for that. We're both prepared for that. Anything to give Russell a chance of living.
Many years ago, I got into trouble at school, and I was given an option of either do a lunchtime's detention or go and see the careers film that was running. And the film was about a career in hotel management. Basically, I came out of it with this impression of a guy arriving at a hotel front door in a 3-litre Capri, in John Player special colours and all the rest of it, waltzes into reception, has a quick scan of the register, sits down to dinner with a very attractive girl, finishes his dinner, gets back up, has a look at the register, gets back in his 3-litre Capri and drives off. And I thought, well, that sounds like and looks like the sort of job I'm after.
Russell is now general manager of a chain of luxury hotels, a job he loves.
Venous pressure's a bit high.
His employers don't begrudge the time he spends on dialysis.
Probably because it's in an angle.
His father's offer has given him pause for thought.
I think it's obvious what my dad's offered to do is very, very brave. But to me at the moment I feel it's a little bit of an overreaction. If I was in a situation where I couldn't be dialysed, well, my only option to stay alive was to find a kidney, then I think it'd be a different question. I think until that point arrives, it's not one question that you can answer straight out, yes, I'll do it, no, I won't. But for somebody else to try and say, well, no, I don't think that's ethical, sorry, you're going to die, that's not on.
Chris, as a transplant surgeon, how do you respond to this? I mean, first of all, we're not going to get anywhere unless we find the surgeon is prepared to even consider such an operation.
The assumption being, I take it, that father would then go on to dialysis.
Absolutely.
Not die.
Absolutely, yeah.
It seems to me the question of the second kidney boils down purely and simply to whether it's reasonable to do something. It's whether it's reasonable for a surgeon to do something to somebody which harms them, which is not to their benefit. It's not to their physical benefit.
Not to the physical benefit.
Now, you will put forward the argument as to his emotional benefit. It's what he thinks his overall life is for.
I think if my son or my daughter was on dialysis and their only way off dialysis was for them to have a kidney from me, knowing all I do about dialysis, I would probably be happy to give up my second kidney to them, even knowing that there was only an 80 to 90% chance that that would be successful. And I think I could take that decision, and I'm as well informed as anybody about the various risks that are involved. Provided one feels that one could fully inform him about the consequences, I would think it would be ethically reasonable to take his second kidney.
You think it's possible to
I think it is possible to fully inform it and discuss
I
it.
disagree with you there strongly, Hugh. If this gentleman had had a nephrectomy and he had post-operative complications, and at the very worst case scenario he died as a consequence, the impact on the morale of staff would be enormous, because they had taken part in an act in which they may not feel morally that they could justify.
But that's actually true, Sue, if you think about it enough, of every living donor transplant we do. Every time we do a living donor transplant, we take the risk that the donor will die.
It's different because we know people can survive quite healthily on one kidney, and that's how we justify it, because we know that they can go out and have the same quality of life, more or less, that they had before. Obviously there are risks involved in any operation, and we also know that is an equal opportunity for the recipient. But here we're not saying that, we're saying the benefit is totally one-sided. The father is going to dialyse. People talk in a dialysis unit, it's a very close-knit unit, often rumours travel around, and you can imagine the kind of crazy pressures that would create on people, like they're asking parents to give away 2 kidneys, parents and all, well...
But none of that is a reason not to do it. The difficulties you'd have in the unit and with the staff and things is a secondary consideration. It would be something we would need to deal with, but I don't think it's a reason not to do it. That's what we're here for.
I had the medical students with me when we talked about it before, and then they talked about it afterwards, and one of them was very much concerned that this wasn't to do with health, this was a sort of personal struggle this man had about the guilt and so on. And when I first heard the story, I thought back instinctively, but of course it is in a way, but that's what sort of motivates him. How can you untangle all these things? I mean, the man knows, he can see his son suffering, he knows that he inherited the gene, all these thoughts are going through his mind, and I mean, can you really untangle any of that?
I think with every living donor transplant that's contemplated, there are all sorts of things that have gone on within the family about which we know nothing. There are pressures within the family, there are guilt feelings, there's feelings of responsibility, feelings of love and affection, all sorts of things. We can't begin to know everything that's going on within a family.
Neil was objecting.
Neil?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, Neil's
objection.
Neil's objection was that, and he said that, he said Russell will object as well. You see, and put it tritely, I said, well, why would you both object? And Neil's answer was, he said, out of love for you. I said, well, I'm offering love, by the kidney, and that it's wrong to think that the depth of emotion should interfere with something that's, more important than emotion, if I can put it that way. Are you with me?
I find that a bit disturbing, actually.
Well, I didn't mean to disturb it, but...
No, that Neil feels like that, because that's now, then, in a sense, putting pressure on me.
Well, perhaps this is going back a few months, because when it first came through, you said no straight away, didn't you? Your natural reaction was said no, you're not going to do it.
It comes down to conscience, doesn't it? That's what it comes down to. As far as I'm concerned, it comes down to conscience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could be just absolutely totally cold and callous about it. I say, yeah, whoopee, let's get on with it, and I'm all right, Jack, now.
Yeah, but
that's Neil's right. That's Neil's argument.
That's the argument between you and your dad and me, okay? And we know that you don't feel that way deep down. We know that, Russell. We know you accept this, or you will accept it in the love that is given.
Don't you think that you owe us some consideration, the fact that...
Yeah, and the emotional and the fact that I've got a problem with my conscience is because of the selfishness of what I'm doing.
I appreciate that.
So, by looking at it through your eyes and saying, well, I'm not doing it totally selfishly, you're saying you want me to do it because you have an emotional feeling about this as well.
No, what I said was, don't you think that you owe us some of that consideration? To say that,
I mean, I didn't put you in this situation, did I? I mean, I didn't choose that bloody kidney failure. It's happened. So to say, well, I've now got an obligation to take that distress away from you because I've got kidney failure is not a very nice thing to say.
I can't help it, you know, there's nothing... I didn't elect to have kidney failure.
I'm not saying that at all.
Right, so I haven't put you in this situation.
That's ridiculous.
It's not, because you're saying I owe you some relief from this situation.
No, I owe some consideration as a factor,
That is what you just said.
in the decision.
Well, I'm considering you in the decision, aren't I?
Well, no, because you've given the impression so far that in the cold light of day it was yes or no.
Well, it can only be yes or no, Dad, can't it? I am capable of coldly shutting my mind to it, I'll tell you straight.
Yeah.
Alright? I could just say, boom, do it. And I'll wake up and deal with it afterwards. But I don't know how I feel afterwards.
I think the arguments that I've heard that would justify doing it are quite seductive, was the word I used. And I can see that there are arguments in favour of it. And what it would have to boil down to is whether I was convinced that the emotional benefits to doing it are so enormous, that they outweigh the very considerable physical damage that we'd be doing to the man, physical harm that we'd be doing to the man. Now, I find it very hard to believe that that situation could arise, where the emotional benefits outweigh the physical harm. But that's the crux of the decision, and I don't think I can make that decision without meeting him.
I'd be interested to meet him.
You're a very young lady, so I don't suppose you really know what the sort of parental emotion, the widths that can go to. Now, I've never said this to anybody before because it seems a little bit sort of off the cuff, but can you imagine the times I've been to the hospital, come back home, myself and my wife, and just burst into tears? I've even thought sometimes when I get depressed about it, one of these days, when Russell is at the hospital, I'll walk in there and take a gun and go, bang, now you've got a kidney, what are you going to do with it? Now imagine a thought like that going through your head. And can you imagine the depths of feeling that makes you think like that?
I don't change the way you feel about it, because I think that would be wrong. But what I'm saying to you is that we have to be sure that we are doing the right thing for all people. And I don't think that taking your second kidney is the right thing to do. I think the right thing to do is to find a different way of supporting Russell through this difficult period. Much as, and you know, you have obviously got a very close family unit, and you want to support each other. But by making you ill, I don't think that's the answer, because I think that whatever Russell says to you as Prendergast, and I can say this as a daughter, from a point of view of a child, he will feel guilty. He won't be able to look at you and feel guilty, and it might change your relationship.
There you go.
Thank you.
Russell is healthier than has been since his 20s. After an enforced 5-year break, he's planning to renew his love affair with skiing.
Where are you going to go?
Austria.
Can I come?
Yeah, if you want. I want someone to come and put my needles in.
Right.
Just want this 1 week, and if it, whatever it costs me, whatever I have to pay, whatever I have to sacrifice to get it, once I've had it, I'll be happy. And if I don't end, you know, I can walk away and say, well, if I don't end up going again, I've had this week. It's that important to me. Yeah, 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 da, 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 da. When I got out of bed this morning, bloody hell, my legs were stiff. Walk up and down the room a few times before I even get in the shower. Good feeling, though.
Actually, the snow could be better today up here. The fresh snow Sunday night, and then it's been peasted.
Yeah.
Should be the biz. Where we're going, Pengelstein?
Yeah, I reckon. Da 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 I mean, things like this, I mean, just make you want a transplant more and more. Yeah, it's, you know, I mean, it's great to come back, and it's nice to think, well, health's improved over the last 2 years to put you in a position to want to come back, to be bothered with the travel, to be energetic enough to come out and ski and go out in the evening and party and all the rest of it. And it really wasn't until I actually sort of got to the unit at Sun Johan yesterday that sort of started clicking back in, you know, don't matter what you're doing, where you're going, you've still got to dialyse 3 times a week. You've still got to build everything around that. And it's just the thought of just having a break from that, you know. When you think about transplantation, you think, oh, you know, the risk, and oh, what if it only lasts 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, less, more, whatever. But it's when you come to places like this, you think, well, if I had those 2 months even, what could I do in those 2 months? It would be fantastic to have 2 months, 60 days. Not to have to worry about dialysis, go out and get smashed out of my skull every night if I wanted to. So all the time, you know, the prospect of going through with this, from my point of view, gets more and more attractive and more and more important, I suppose. It's getting a little bit icy now. And then we tack down. Whoa! Bloody hell! Yeehaw! God, my bloody legs.
On his return, some devastating news awaits Russell. At the laboratory in Oxford, they've retested his blood and discovered that the failed transplant he received was a poor match and has caused him to make antibodies against 96% of the population. This means that apart from his parents, who are a special case, only 4% of the population will have a kidney his body would accept. If his parents are ruled out, he's told that he may never get a transplant. He turns to his closest friends, Steve and Veronica, for guidance.
The best option would be, perhaps, from the point of view of a match, right? And the likelihood of finding an alternative organ is now, as you put it, not probable. Possible, but not very probable. But you could do it. You could do it.
Yes, I would. I would.
Why would you do it?
Well, it's slightly different being a parent, but if I...
That's it. You're doing it for the boys, wouldn't you?
Well, I would do it for, yeah, for the future.
But would you do it for yourself if the boys didn't exist?
Oh, gosh. Probably. Probably.
And you could live with all the possible outcomes. You know, I can just see these pictures, you know, sort of coming round the operation, there's tubes in me and everything, and someone's sitting on the end of the bed and saying, oh, yeah, it's in there, it's working, you know, got a bag full of urine down here. I'm sorry to tell you that your dad died on the operating table. You'd feel like ripping the blasted thing out, you know.
Yes, you would. But then, if it was his last wish in the world...
See, you've asked me, right, would I take it? I wouldn't take my dad's kidney, but inside I'm trying to tell you, go for it. You know, I really think that it's your best option, but I don't know if I could do it for my dad. I couldn't do it, I don't think. But if you didn't take it, your dad would be hurt.
Would you, I mean,
if it was...
If it was you and Tom, would you be upset if Tom refused it then?
Yeah, oh, yes. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because it's something... in some ways you feel that your son, or your daughter, whatever, is part of you.
Yeah, it's an extension.
And it's an extension of you. And if he refused, I would feel that he'd sort of broken a tie some way with me.
Bloody hell.
You know, he'd be just like turning his back on me.
Yeah, no worries.
You know, I can help him,
But he doesn't want
but
my
he doesn't
help.
want it.
That's the best option he's got, but he doesn't want it.
Dad's might be the best chance I'm going to have.
Yeah.
It may be the only chance I'm going to have. And if I'm going to do it, I might have to do it soon.
What do your mother and your brother think? What do they think about it?
My mother's all for it.
Right.
My brother says he's all for it, but I don't believe him.
Right, okay. Well, the problem is, although on the surface as well it appears like this is a decision between two people, it's going to involve the whole family dynamics. And if you go through a situation, and let's take the option that it didn't go well, say for example, if at the very worst it didn't work and you and your father were both on
dialysis.
dialysis,
Is both of us die on the table, isn't it?
or that you're both on dialysis,
Yeah.
that would forever affect the dynamics of your family. Have you thought about that aspect?
How do you mean the dynamics of it?
Well, the relationships between the various members of the family could
No, I
not
don't think
but be.
it would.
You just said you didn't know how your brother felt.
I think I do know how he feels.
How does he feel?
I don't think he's approving of it. But I also know that once a decision has been made, whatever that decision is, right, the family unit will rally round it. And if it turns out to be the wrong one, the family unit will still rally round it.
But not just at a medical level, but at a gut level, I think it's wrong. And do you know why I think it's wrong?
No, I don't.
Because, you're valuing one life more than another. That your father's quality of life isn't as important as yours, and that will come to you not now. That may come to you later on if your dad can't go into the garden and
we've already
can't walk
spoken
around.
about that.
I can't see how you would want your father to go on dialysis knowing what you know.
All right, let's put it to you this way. If we turned up one night, all right, and the prognosis was that if I don't get a transplant within 48 hours, I'm going to die. Right, and they said, well, because of this antibody situation, the only kidney that you can possibly have is your father's. What would you do then? Let me die?
Well, I don't think so. I think I'd put you on the crash transplant list.
No, they said that is not an option. That isn't an option. It's not available to me. The only option I've got, all right, you're throwing in a variable that's not available. The only option I've got is to have... I know it's a difficult question.
I can't answer that.
It's a difficult situation.
I can't answer that because I still think I wouldn't do it.
Just let me die.
I wouldn't let you die. I would operate. I would do everything possible.
But that's what I'm saying to you.
I wouldn't harm your father in that way. No, I couldn't
so you
do
let
it.
me die?
No, I wouldn't let you die. I would do everything. I don't know if you're going to die, but I wouldn't make that decision.
Won't overtake on here, else I might end up as a donor line.
So in summary, he's if there was any opportunity of doing it, he'd still like to pursue that opportunity.
Yes.
Seems to be.
Yes.
Well, Raj, that's obviously a little bit difficult, isn't it? We discussed this at length with Chris Raj, and for a variety of reasons, he feels adamant that he can't or won't do it, and he's going to, I think, personally meet Mr. Prendergast at least explain why he can't or won't do it.
I know that you want me to do harm to you. I know that you understand what dialysis is. I know that you understand that by having your second kidney out, you're going to be on dialysis, you're shortening your life. I know all those things. I know you want me to do it. But the bottom line is, I would feel that I couldn't do it. I know that I couldn't do it. And when I imagine you being wheeled into the operating theatre, I couldn't do it.
Well, so far, of course, you've given... most of your dialogue has been the disadvantages. Mm-hmm. Now, what about the advantages for Russell? Based on the fact that, I've said it in the correspondence.
I think what Mr. Woods is saying, I think he knows what all the advantages would be to me. He knows what all the disadvantages can be. People can't help the way they feel, and no matter how right he felt it was, if he couldn't physically stand there and stick a knife in, I think, with the people we've met, at various stages throughout this, with the BMA, up to now, it's because it's not ethical, and we've looked at that, so basically they haven't got the guts to do it. because they're too worried about what other people will think, not what they personally think. And if that was the argument I was hearing now, I'd been as vociferous as I have been on other meetings. But I think that's as honest and as straightforward an opinion you're going to get, and we could sit here all day until tomorrow. But if Mr. Rudge said, I'm sorry, I agree with you, but I just can't do it, then you've got to respect that.
I promise you, I really have thought about this as much as I think is possible to. I've looked at it from every possible angle. I've come up with the intellectual feeling that what you're suggesting is perfectly reasonable, rational, and probably ethical. I've come up with a personal solution that I couldn't do it to you.
Having met Mr. Prendergast, he could not be described as, inverted commas, young for his age, close inverted commas, full stop. He is fit and active, but overweight, full stop. As a team, we would not be prepared to transplant Mr. Prendergast's remaining kidney, full stop. Although my view is more ambivalent, new line, bullet point, given the enormous strength of feeling in the family, and their apparent unanimity, I wonder whether his mother should be reconsidered as a donor, full stop. I have no information at all about why she has been rejected several times as a donor, but the ethics of using her kidney pale into insignificance compared with her husband, full stop.
Of course she carries a gene, and she's likely to at least some small amount of protein or blood in her urine. However, she may otherwise carry the gene asymptomatically, which would imply that her kidney function would be normal for her age. They're not happy that your application has been dismissed without more evidence of the reasons why, so they're going to investigate that medically.
Good. Should have been done when I first tried in 1988. You know, if they do find that I'm acceptable, I'll be furious. We've lost 7 years.
Okay, you know what I'm doing. Yeah.
The crucial question is whether Eva might be a match for Russell. He inherited half her genes, so the odds are better than if she were a stranger. But even so, there's only a 1 in 10 chance of her being acceptable. Her blood cells are mixed with Russell's serum to see if his antibodies attack them.
Oh dear. Hold your breath.
I know what that is. Sit down, then, read it. Sit down.
A minute. It's good news.
Not very good.
Yes. It appears that I could donate a kidney to Russell.
Let's have a look.
That's that one.
However, as I mentioned, your medical evaluation, which will be quite stringent, will have to suggest that this can be done without undue risk to yourself.
Oh, it's a blessing.
How do you feel about it yourself, though?
Just want to get on with it. I want to see Russell like Neil.
Eva's evaluation begins at Oxford. It's difficult for the doctors because her age, blood pressure and general fitness count against her, but they don't rule her out. Preliminary tests indicate that her kidney function is probably normal for her age.
Her creatinine clearance comes at 67 mils per minute. So if we took that kidney out, it would leave her with half the kidney function she's got at the moment. And the question is, would that be enough to last her for the rest of her life? No one can answer that question.
I mean, apart from the risk to the mother, what I am also concerned about is whether it's justified to put a kidney from this 64-year-old woman into a 35-year-old recipient. And I think that the chance of this kidney surviving a long time would be quite remote. You know, perhaps one might get 5-10 years out of it.
But in the scale of his life, it might be rather valuable. 5 or 7 years. That's to be another way of arguing it.
Well, I suppose another way, this is putting off the decision, we should get a cardiological and an anaesthetic opinion. But I suspect again they'll put the ball back in our court, or my court, I guess it's getting to be.
Well, I must say, I've thought about this a lot since you rang me first, and in the end, we were empowering patients, and I wondered whether you could say to Mrs. Prendergast, look, here are all the risks, and maybe the decision's finally going to have to be yours.
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult. To what extent do you pass the buck to the patient by presenting them with figures and facts and asking them to give informed consent? I mean, I think always the doctor has to play a role in making this decision. I would feel it'd be a bit unfair. I mean, she would say, I suspect, that she'd do it whatever the risk, as many parents would, of course. So I'm not sure that's a way out of the present dilemma.
At the present time, I limb from all of you, because nobody has spoken to me about it. Your dad won't talk to me about it, and you needn't laugh, because I think it's you that threatened him not to talk to me about it, didn't you? Hey?
I told everybody I didn't want anybody suggesting anything, that if you wanted to do this, you would...
But can you understand how that made me feel? Because obviously I've been thinking about it an awful lot over the past few months.
Yeah, I know, but what I didn't want, Mum, was from the sense that because Dad's done it for Neil, I didn't want you to think you have to do it for me.
When you both went on dialysis in 1988, I was the first one to go and see the doctors in Leicester to see if they could if I could be a donor to one of you. And they cut me out straight away.
Yeah.
3 times have I. So I wouldn't do that if I had no deep feeling to wanting to help if I could.
Also, there's feeling from mine and Neil's point of view.
Much out on a limb from all of you, because nobody has spoken to me about it. Your dad won't talk to me about it, and you needn't laugh, because I think it's you that threatened him not to talk to me about it, didn't you? Hey?
I told everybody I didn't want anybody suggesting anything, that if you wanted to do this, you would...
But can you understand how that made me feel? Because obviously I've been thinking about it an awful lot over the past few months.
Yeah, I know, but what I didn't want, Mum, was from the sense that because Dad's done it for Neil, I didn't want you to think you have to do it for me.
When you both went on dialysis in 1988, I was the first one to go and see the doctors in Leicester to see if they could if I could be a donor to one of you. And they cut me out straight away.
Yeah.
3 times have I. So I wouldn't do that if I had no deep feeling to wanting to help if I could.
Also, there's feeling from mine and Neil's point of view.
When I look at Russell, he's the best health he's been now for years and years.
Yeah.
Okay?
But don't you think it's time he was given his freedom?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
He's been stuck on dialysis for 7 years.
Yes, I know he has. I know he's been stuck on dialysis. And I've been on dialysis myself, so I know exactly how...
Yeah, but not for a long period of time.
It was long enough.
And working as well in between, you know,
well, I was
all the way through it.
Yeah? I know how restrictive it is. Yeah? And in my mind, the sacrifice you want to make is not warranted at this point in time.
I don't think it is a sacrifice.
It is. I don't think it's I'm healthy, you're fairly healthy, relatively healthy.
You can't...
But no, my point is...
I'm not healthy.
No, my point, you're healthier.
I'm not healthy, Neil, because I'm spending 15 hours a week strapped to a bloody machine.
You're healthier than you have been for a long time.
You sound as if you want to avoid any emotional upset on your part if things go wrong, rather than the deep interest between your mother and Russell.
I want to avoid risk. Yeah, absolutely.
We all want to avoid risk, but I mean...
That's not an option. The only way of avoiding risk in this situation is not to do anything.
Well, even that's a risk.
Well, that's an option.
No, that's a risk.
So that's a risk, because that's increasing the risk on me.
All right, well, to me, that's the least risk option.
And it looks healthy to you, does it?
Yeah. Yeah. So who are you donating the kidney to?
Hopefully.
How old's he?
35.
Same age as me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's been on dialysis for 8 years, so I think it's time we had a bit of freedom, don't you?
Yeah.
With my dad, I never had to make the decision. We still haven't reached that point with my mum, but we are over the biggest hurdle, which is the cross match.
And it was when she told me that, and I thought, oh, Jesus, this really could actually come to fruition. And then she started saying, well, they're talking about November. I thought, hell, it's only 4 or 5 weeks away. And I started really thinking, look, hey, you know, I mean, this could happen, really. I know there's still some things, I mean, I'm still thinking in the back of my mind to just keep my mouth shut and she'll fail at one of the medicals, or something will happen that will make it a non-starter like it did with Dad. And then I can sort of just go back on the transplant list, not upsetting anybody. Everybody's done the best they possibly can, so Mum and Dad will feel that they've done whatever they possibly could, if you see what I mean. But I haven't had to make the decision that perhaps I don't really want to make.